This is the video review for Metal Cardbot S Cielo. And here's a size comparison. You can see he's very big compared to Transformers. And here's a look at the box art, which is very colorful as always. And I should probably mention at this point that I did customize this figure, so this is not how he looks out of the box. And then he comes with these folded instructions, not that special. Alright, so here he is on the turntable, and the things I customized on this figure, there's a few things. I customized his wings, so that now they're attached to his backpack instead of his shoulders. I customized his telescoping legs, so they actually pull out further. I customized his hood a little bit, so he can turn his head more. And then the last thing I modified was his biceps a little bit, and I'll show that off with the articulation just so he could fold his arms more. But yeah, I think his robot mode is really excellent looking. I just love these colors and the angles. This figure just turned out so cool. And the reason I did not buy this figure earlier was because I think his head sculpt is actually kind of dumb. I think he's got kind of like a sorcerer kind of cowl going on, and he's kind of got like these goggles in the hood too. And then he's got like a visor, baseball looking kind of visor. He's very confused looking, I would say. I'm not sure what kind of head this is. I think it is supposed to be a sorcerer because Sky Gallop is kind of a knight or a Valkyrie. I think this figure is supposed to be like a mage that attacks his enemies from a distance. I think that was the idea. I think that's why he has these giant machine pistols. And I think these machine pistols are actually very awesome. It's cool how it pegs into his forearms and then he holds it in his fists as well. And it's got just these cool little bullet details here. So really great looking futuristic weapons. I enjoy that a lot. So you actually unclip it from his forearm and then it pegs into his fist right here. So nice secure hold. And I like how they kind of like blend into his arm so it actually looks like it's part of his body, these pistols. So really, really pleased with these weapons. They're definitely some of the best. And then the transformation of these is pretty cool. You just fold down like the weapon clip, and then you're going to double joint this piece right here, and then the handle will fold into that, and then you take the barrel of the pistol and it makes that, and then you just do that twice, and then you're just going to clip these two pistols together, and they're kind of asymmetrical, so the screws are on the same side on both of them, but they are actually different. So this one has like this rectangle peg on it, and that's so you can plug the card onto the front. So it's kind of annoying that they have the screws on the same side, even though they're supposed to be symmetrical. They're not. But here's his card, and you get a pretty cool looking flying pose. And then if you only had one of these pistols, this actually does look like the original card weapons. It just folds up very nicely. But so I guess I'll go over the mods I made to this figure. So I did cut like the little points of his hood. You can see they look a little rough. And that's just so he could turn his head more. He can turn his head almost, at this point, he can turn it almost 90 degrees. Before I trimmed these, he could only turn his head about this much. It was pretty pathetic. So it's better that he has the ability to turn his head more. And then I did trim these tiny little triangles in his bicep here. And that does allow him to get one extra bicep click from this to this. It's very pointless, but I wanted to do it anyway. And then I did put his wings on ball joints here. So these are articulated and they can fold back and kind of get out of his way. And then he does have like this wing joint anyway, so you could fold his wing even further if you had to. And then he does have bicep swivel. He does have outward click here, but he also has outward click here. And he does have a rotation joint here, which is kind of tough. It's just stiff. I don't really like how that turns. I'm a little worried about it. He doesn't have a waist articulation, unfortunately. He does have more than a full forward kick. He's got a full backward kick as well. He does have a full side kick. And then he does have 90 degrees on the knee, as you would expect. And then he doesn't have anything on the toes except for transformation. So his articulation is pretty good. I would say definitely one of the better metal Cardbot figures for articulation. And you get some really great like flying and action poses out of him, with especially with his pistols, since they just look really cool in his hand. So the other mod I did was his legs are actually not usually this long. They actually are more this length. So his legs were exactly long enough that he could get 90 degrees in the knee. Oh, and he has thigh swivel too. I forgot that. But his legs were actually this short, as opposed to how long I've made this one. So you can kind of get an idea about what he'd look like. So before I modded his legs, he was about this tall, which is not great, I don't think. Compared to this, I think this just suits him a lot better. It just looks much cooler. And then the thing with his wings, you can pop them off the ball joints, and then they can be reattached to his shoulders like this. And then they did give his wings a hinge right here, and I think that was just so he could fit in the box. I don't think he actually looks like this in the show. I think his wings are usually behind him like this, according to the box art. So they're behind him like this, and maybe you can go up. It's okay. I just didn't like the original way his wings are. I kind of do like this mode where his wings are kind of hidden. That's not a bad look. That actually looks pretty cool. But it's annoying because when he wields his weapons, that means his whole wing just is constantly getting in the way when you're rotating his shoulder, and that's the whole reason I modded this, so that it could just be pulled off and pegged onto his back instead. And plus I liked having this blue stripe forward facing, so it gives him a little bit more color instead of just having this bland white wing. And I think this just looks better, right? I think this side looks better. So I guess you can see this is like what he looks like outside the box on one side, and then the modded side looks like this. I think my side looks better. But yeah, you can get some cool poses out of this guy. I think I kind of slept on this one just because he looked, just his stock configuration looked like it had some problems, but I really did love the colors and the design originally, and plus I just hated this head sculpt. I'm not super into it, but it's better now that I modded it. I'm definitely much more into this figure. I think he is really great. So you can also the transformation is pretty simple, and you can get him into a Gerwalk mode, which is actually really nice looking. So you have to unpeg the shoulders so that you can move his whole chest block, and then you're just going to fold out the cockpit. So this is very normal transformation kind of thing to do. And then you have like this little cap piece which hides his eyes, and you're just going to fold that up. And then I like to tuck this under like his backpack piece a little bit. So we just get all that right there. We're going to put his shoulders back where they were, and then just get his arms ready for his Gerwalk mode. And then you can see that's actually looking pretty good already. And then he does have this tail fin piece which can be flattened out, but you just point that up. Actually, I guess for Gerwalk it would be flat. And then you just fold his legs forward, bend them at the knees, you just spread them out a little bit, and there you have pretty convincing Macross mode. Okay, and while I'm seeing that this does look pretty cool in hand, and maybe if you had a flight stand, he definitely does not like to stand up in this mode. He's very front heavy, so that's not really going to happen, unfortunately. I can't really cheat that. Maybe if I move his legs back further, can kind of do it. Okay, so because he doesn't have those reverse joint legs, he's just not really going to stand up in this mode, but I think he still looks great. And you can even get him in this mode even if you didn't mod your figure, which is very nice. So you can still get it even when his wings are mounted to his shoulders. You can still get a very excellent looking Gerwalk mode. I think the cockpit should actually be straight technically. So maybe something more like this. I don't really watch Macross, so I wouldn't know, but I think that looks pretty convincing. The only annoying thing about this is if you move the shoulders, the whole wing is going to move. So really the only articulation you're going to get is in the arms, the elbows. But I think that probably is like one of the best looking Gerwalks I've ever seen, actually, even on a Macross figure. So yeah, getting him into his jet mode is going to be very easy from here. You just fold his legs back, you just straighten those out, and then you're going to peg those together, and then these legs collapse down all the way to his crotch pretty much, and then you open up these tail fins, close up his feet, and then you're going to move his backpack back here, and then these tabs are going to peg into these slots on his legs, fold up the tail fin, and then the arms are kind of complicated. You do have to accordion them back here into this position, and then you do have to rotate the shoulder, and then there's a hinge on the shoulder to finally get the wings in the right place. And then you can see with my custom, this ball joint is just going to snap in right there. And then you can actually leave the guns in his hand, and then you can see this peg. You're just going to peg right there on the forearm. And then you can get a cool looking jet with the pistols armed. So here he is in his jet mode, and then you can just take down, there's landing gear right here, and then he's got these wheels on his knees. So you get this final jet, which is just so gorgeous to look at. I just love the design on this. I don't think I've really seen a robot that looks like this except for Virtual On, which had some very clean geometric designs, and I really do like that. And then of course he's not supposed to have his card weapons in hand. You're supposed to actually, oh, and I forgot to say he has wrist swivels too, which is totally unnecessary on this figure, so I don't know why they bothered with that, but you can actually open up his fists for transformation, and they become basically missile pods. So just a great looking jet that is already comes with built-in weapons. And I think this is probably the best jet out of all the metal Cardbots. I think this one just wins. Like, look how beautiful he is. And then he does have like these weird articulation here. I don't know what the point of that is. It's not used for any of his modes. I think they just use the pins to secure these to the jet. But it looks excellent from every angle, and the colors just pop. And then you can see like his undercarriage is kind of ugly, but it's fairly streamlined as well. It's not too bad for a Transformer. So I would highly recommend this figure. He is one of my favorites, even though I had no plans on getting him initially. He was $50 on Gmarket, and I think that's a really excellent deal. He's well worth it. So, oh yeah, I guess I'll show you how I did his leg mod. Okay, so I got this leg here all unscrewed. So we'll try to just gently take this apart so it doesn't explode. well, that didn't work out too well. But you can see this is what the inside mechanism looks like. It just slides on this rail, and then it's got these little clips right here, these little tabs. They're spring loaded, so that just locks it in place here. And then you can pretty much see what I did for this mod. All I did was I just cut this piece off and I extended it about maybe like 8 mm just to make him a little bit taller. And that's it. I just made this piece longer. That's about it. And then it still slides all the way down. And you can see that's in the bottom position. And then it slides all the way up, and that's when he's in his robot mode. So pretty simple mod, highly recommend it. You would have to have like some experience to be able to pull that off though. But anyway, I'll see you in the next one.